Generous persons will prosper. Those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. This is the word of God for us, the people of God. Thanks be to God. Amen. Will you pray with me? God of love and God of grace, this is your time and we are your people. Open our hearts, our minds, and our lives to your presence that we would receive your word and respond with all that we are. Amen. So friends, we've talked about this over the last few weeks, but I just like to reiterate it. It's that time of year. Yes, we're planning for the budget of 2019 for our church, and we would love your investment in the work of what Grace Avenue does. Not just that we're giving money to the church, but we're giving money through the church for what God is doing in this world, and that we get to be part of that. So I'm probably going to say something that a pastor is not supposed to say, but I don't feel like it is my role during a sermon when we're responding to the Holy Scriptures that it is my job here to convince you to give more money to the church. It is not something I feel like that is the deepest calling of what we're doing in worship today, or what we're doing when we talk about fulfillment and responding to this invitation from John Wesley to earn all you can and save all you can and give all you can. I think the most surface level thing I could do is to try to convince you to give the church more money. I'm just not a very good salesperson, to be honest. That may be obvious from what I just said. No, I want to have a different kind of conversation, not only about our budgeting process for the church, not only about church fundraising, but really about our lives as generous people. What does it mean for us to be generous people who are reflecting the generosity of God in the world? As we talk about what it means to give all we can today. When I do this, I feel like I'm learning from those who have gone before me. My dad is the kind of guy, he was a preacher's kid. I'm not a preacher's kid. I'm the son of a preacher's kid. And so that meant for him as a business leader in whatever towns we grew up in, that he was going to be at any Methodist church that was there and then probably serve on every committee of every Methodist church that we were a part of as I was growing up. And he told me this story when I was in seminary. He was like, hey, you're going to come to a point where you're having this kind of conversation that you and I are having today. And he said, I want to give you a bit of advice to not just talk about asking for folks money or asking to meet the budget and hit those fundraising goals. He said this is what happened to him. They got a bunch of new, young, excited committee members on the finance committee, which is like a miracle from heaven when that can happen. And my dad was one of these people. He is a manager for electric company branches all over the state of Texas, and we were in one of these places. And he said they had this brilliant idea at First Methodist Church of Burkburnett, Texas. They broke down the budget on the minimum everyone could give to meet the budget. And it was just going to cost a cup of coffee a day. So they got fired up and they went to every Sunday school class, every Bible study, every United Methodist men's group, every United Methodist women's group. If the Boy Scouts were meeting, they were talking to the parents. You name it, this committee was taking action and they were making their pitch hard. All we need is for you to look at, can you give $2.50 a day? If everybody can do that, we are going to meet our budget and we're going to do so much good things. It's going to be awesome. You're $2.50 a day. You know, I guess that maybe be like $912.50. I think that's what that adds up to, times 365. Someone's going to check my math and be like, no. So what happens is, a person, let's just say with more life experience than my father at that time, hears this pitch, sees the energy and excitement of these committee members, and says, hey, Larry, that's my dad's name, can I meet with you? I want to follow up on your invitation to give to the church this year. And he meets with my dad at his office. We were in Burkburnett, Texas. It's a small town. There weren't a lot of commuters there. Everyone kind of lived and worked in this little town. He comes into my dad's office a couple days after hearing this really excited pitch of your cup of coffee a day is going to help us make the budget. And he gives my dad that check for $912.50. And there's an awkward pause because this was someone who probably gave substantially more than that to the church on a regular basis. My dad was like, oh, thanks. And the guy said, well, I did what you asked. You asked for my $250, I'm giving you my $250. You didn't ask for everything that I could give. You didn't ask for me to be connected to this in a deeper way. You asked for my bare minimum, so you're going to get that, if that's all you ask for. Now, I don't know. I don't know the end of that story or if that even happened. My dad just told me this story as a kid, so it could have been something my grandfather told in a sermon someday, and now I'm telling you. But that is one of my deepest fears when we talk about these things, that we're only talking about the debits and credits that we got to get through to make 2019 a financially solvent year for Grace Avenue. I do not want to talk about the bare minimum I can give. I don't want to talk about the bare minimum you can give. I don't want to talk about only the money that we give. I want to talk about all of our lives and how we give all of ourselves to join what God is doing in the world. We've talked about this over the last few weeks, that the conversation is, yes, about money, but it is about our hearts and our lives. And we have this invitation from John Wesley. It is kind of audacious because oftentimes Christians are not the ones, always. There are certain branches of Christianity that are saying, you need to earn all you can and be as prosperous as possible. That's not the only story we're telling, though. We're invited to earn all we can, but not at the expense of our health or the expense of our neighbor or the expense of our souls. And we talked about that a couple of weeks ago. And we're called to save all we can. That brings freedom in our lives, that saving can bring us so much freedom from the fears that are all around us, be it from debt or for just survival for our family, and that making sure that you and your family survive is a good thing. I don't want anybody quoting me and saying, Marcus said that we all just need to be struggling week to week to make all, no. It is a good thing for us to make sure that we can survive and thrive individually in our families and in our communities. But we also know as Christians that we are called to what John Wesley calls that farther end, not only of my own survival, not only of my own thriving, but I am saving all I can so that I might join someone else's freedom. And investing in their thriving might be part of my story. And friends, that absolutely brings us to the scriptures we have today. That we are refreshed when we give to others. That in our generosity, we reflect what that calling from God has been to humanity from before we were ever around, from those ancestors that have gone before, that we are blessed to be a blessing. John Wesley got a little offended because, yes, it's tempting to just stop after the first two invitations to earn all you can and save all you can. He says, if you don't have that third part, we're not doing Christianity together, friends. We earn all we can and save all we can so that we can give all we can. Like we talked about, we do these things because there is so much more good that we can do. Rainey's witness was a really wonderful one to talk about what gets multiplied. And this is not like, oh, I want you to give the church money and you're going to have your own bank account multiplied. This is that we all give to the work of God being real in this world. And we see how many more people can encounter grace, how many more people can encounter hope, how many more people can encounter life and life abundant. But it may take not just meeting the bare minimum of having a budget. The hope isn't that we all give the same amount, the same dollar amount to make things go around here. The hope is that we are all equally invested from our hearts and our lives to see God's transformation take shape. So we hope that you take some practical steps, maybe find where you are in this journey. Maybe just the intentionality alone of what it means for you to give to the work of God is part of opening that transformation of generosity in your heart and in your life. Jim Harnish, he has this book that we're having a lot of our small groups read in our church called Earn, Save, Give. He talks about 3 kinds of givers in the church that he observes and sees, and I think it's fair and non-judgmental. This is not meant to be that, oh, one of these is bad and one of these is better and one of these is good. It is about your personal journey in salvation. And also they happen to have nice alliteration like good sermon illustrations do, so I'm a fan. I think it's good to think about where each of us is in giving all we can. First, maybe you're a tosser. You have the money that you bring with you. You open up the wallet, open up the purse, and what you got, that's what we're given. If the sermon was good and short today, then absolutely. If he said something that felt a little more like meddling in my life than preaching to my heart, then man, I don't know. The beautiful thing is, like we said, if you got $1 million, if you got $10, the grace of God is going to be used from whatever you put in the plate or in the kids' offering or whatever. It's all going to the work of God's grace being real in this world. Maybe that intentionality then is getting to that trying mindset. That's the second one. See, tossing, trying. But trying to figure out, am I really doing all I can? I talk about this when we pass the plates from time to time, that absolutely we're inviting you to give financially to the work of the church when we pass the plates and you give your money in that way. But I hope that that is only a symbol of your entire heart saying, God, make me a vessel, make me an offering, make me whatever you want me to be. I'm offering myself. I'm surrendering it all to what you would do in my life and in this world through me. And so maybe trying to figure out where you're growing and moving and giving all of yourself to the work of God. And then the final one is that very churchy term of tithing. You're giving 10%. You're giving 10%. We're all going to give 10%. I think that's a good goal. We talk about it as the biblical standard of tithing. It is a standard of giving 1/10 of the fruits of our labor and really the fruit of what God has produced and lets us use back to the community and back to the work of God in the world. But if we're using the New Testament standard, that jumps up real quick because Jesus says, give me everything. Take everything and sell it and give that money to the work of God. So our hope is that maybe that sense of 10% gives us a sense of, oh wow, how much is truly mine here? And how much of this is God's that I get to manage and steward and care for? And how am I growing in partnership with God? Martin Luther said we maybe need 3 kinds of conversions in our lives. We need to be converted in our heart, converted in our mind, but then converted in our purse. And maybe one of those is going to take a whole lot longer than the other 2. I think part of it is, I know when we say like, man, there's this biblical standard of giving 10% of your income, and then people are like, gross or net, and that depends, I guess, do you want gross blessings or net blessings? I don't know. But that can seem shocking to a lot of people to talk about that much money. That's real stuff. That's bills that got to be paid and mouths that got to be fed in your own home. I get that. I hope that this is a conversation about where God's grace is present through all of your life. And that work of being converted is something that is a choice we make every day, in every moment, in so many ways. It isn't just that, God, here I am, take everything. I mean, we may have those romantic moments that are those big mountaintop, yes, I am so moved by the Spirit, I'm so moved by the love of God, you have all my heart, you have all my mind, you've got everything here and now. And so often we come down the mountaintop and there are real life issues waiting for us. It's like, oh, maybe not everything, because I got to get through. What does it mean that every day we grow in that sense that God is with us and in and through every single moment of our lives, our heart, our mind, and yes, our time, our energy, our relationships, and our money? Over the next couple weeks as we talk about committing to that kind of work, I hope that's something you're praying about. Where am I in this? Where do I see God showing up in my world and in my family and in my own heart? Where can I trust that God's grace might use me more? As we're doing that work, I think part of what we do when we give all we can is that we are making our mission statement come to life. that God is creating this home for everyone. And it isn't that we're going to eradicate homelessness in all of its forms. It's that God desires a home, spiritually, emotionally, and physically for everyone. That is our core belief as a church. So where are we joining that movement of God? I want to put a quote up here that I shared a couple of weeks ago, but this is what giving all we can does in the church. It's an excellent gift of God, the money that we have and earn. Answering the noblest ends in the hands of God's children, it is food for the hungry, drink for the thirsty, clothing for the naked. It gives shelter and comfort to the traveler and the stranger to lay their head. By it we may supply the care and needs of the widow and of a father to the fatherless. We may be a defense for the oppressed, a means of health to the sick, of ease to those in pain. It may be as eyes to the blind and as feet to those with disability, yes, even a lifter up from the gates of death. I like how Shane Claiborne puts this idea that so many of us are hoping for resurrection and life after this, but so many people are wondering if there's life before death. When we give all we can, we are part of God showing up and being real. So the invitation I hope we consider is not that we come here every week to watch church happen. I know I say that from time to time. We come here and maybe we're trying to be alone together for an hour or so in our week. We don't come on Sundays to watch church happen. We come to be ready to make church happen. This doesn't happen without all of us being present. We are practicing and receiving God's grace every week in worship. And when we respond financially, that is giving ourselves to make these things real. For God's kingdom to come and God's will to be done on earth as it is in heaven. Friends, we pray it every week. If that is alive in your hearts, it is calling all of us, you and me, to give all of our lives, our hearts, our minds, and even our money to make God's presence real in these ways. Earn all you can, but not at the expense of your health or your neighbor or your soul. Save all you can so that you may be free from fear and free to thrive, but also can set others free for their thriving. Give all we can so that we don't just watch church happen as spectators, but we can be part of making church happen as the hands and feet of God's grace. Will you pray with me? God, we want to offer our entire selves today. Yes, God, convince us of the ideas that change our minds about your grace. Yes, God, help us feel in our hearts the ways that you love us and the ways that we have a home and belong to you. But God, and the resources that you have given to us too, may we see the possibility of what you might do. Make us your vessel, make us an offering, make our entire lives whatever you want and need them to be, that our neighbors would know your extravagant grace, your life-giving love, that we might be people who join you in bringing life and hope and love and peace and make them tangible in this world. Amen.